Spring football coming down the home stretch for Ohio State. It is the 2025 spring game, and it comes up this weekend, Saturday, April 12th, inside the Horseshoe. And it's a game that you can see right here on the Big Ten Network. It is time now for today's big interview as we welcome in Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. Coach, we'll get to the spring game coming up in just a bit, but I do want to reflect back, and I'm sure it's not something that you mind reflecting back on the year that was. I'm curious, how many mornings after the national title game do you think you woke up with a huge smile still plastered to your face?
You know, it was some of those days you wake up and, you know, you feel like you have to remind yourself that you won a national championship. And none of the days you do, you wake up with a smile. It's a time that was just almost like a blur, you know, and going back and watching, you know, some of the games and seeing some of the pictures, you know, has been an opportunity to reflect on the whole experience. But it didn't take long to get back into spring practice. You know, spring practice is already really behind us. We have our spring game coming up this weekend, and before you know it, we'll be kicking off against Texas. So it's been great to enjoy and see the guys who put all the hard work in, you know, be recognized for that. But the next season's on us now.
Coach, I love that you were honest when you were asked about if you felt different as a coach after winning the national championship. And you said that you would be lying if the answer was no, that you have to feel a little bit different after accomplishing something like that. So what is the biggest difference that you feel?
I think, you know, if you're just being honest, that when you become the head football coach at Ohio State and you haven't been a head football coach before, you know, maybe you don't get the benefit of the doubt very often. But now that you win a national championship, you know, you build credibility, and I think that, you know, that's real. But also it's just the accomplishment. It's the you know, ability to, you know, sign a new 7-year contract and continue to develop and build and strengthen this foundation, this culture that we have going on here with great people. And, you know, we feel like recruiting is going really, really well, and being able to continue that. And at the end of the day, the job of a coach is to continue to have an impact on young people's lives, and winning just allows us to do that more and more. And, you know, that's probably the most rewarding thing, is knowing that, you know, we're going to be able to do this here, you know, for the next 7 years.
And the coach always has to look out for the best interests of the team and the players that make up that program. It was a grind last year, the longest college football season ever. You mentioned after the year that you'd have to look at the schedule, look at potential changes to make sure that your team is best suited to make another run. So as kind of that CEO head coach, which is a role that you now have to play as well, what changes do you make to make sure your team is in the best position?
Well, coming off of last year, I felt like, well, we got to be really smart about spring. And then the more I got into the spring, I realized we need to do more and more. So it's actually been probably the most physical spring we've had. But I feel like these next few months will be very, very important with Mick in the weight room, and then certainly as we get into the summer. But you know, our roster limit, you know, as it looks like going to 105, I mean, that's going to be a big challenge, a lot of challenge, you know, in terms of like how we organize things and some of the things that come into play in terms of injuries and how we practice. So that's going to be new for sure. And I think there's a lot of lessons learned coming off of last year, just how we practiced, how we built our team, you know, schematically, you know, all the above. So, you know, this year will be different because it's a different group of guys. But, you know, I think, you know, Mick in our strength and conditioning group and in sports medicine and sports science is on the cutting edge. And I think, you know, we have a plan, but now we just got to go to utilize it because we actually have something to compare to, which we didn't have going into last year.
And adapting to change is the name of the game right now because this sport is ever evolving. And for you specifically, you have change at both coordinator spots. How does that affect you as a former play caller for this offense, which was ceded to Chip Kelly a year ago, moving forward into the 2025 season?
Yeah, excited to see Brian. You know, in this role, he's earned the opportunity, and just, you know, how he's continued to build and grow as a coach. And I think it's to the point now where, you know, he can, you know, finish the sentence when it comes out of my mouth and vice versa, because we've been together for so long. So, you know, he and Tyler Bowen and the guys on the staff have working hard this spring to figure out what this is going to look like as we move forward. And then as we get into the season, again, have to adapt, because sometimes you you have to make those changes, ahead of time, but then you got to make them in season. You got to adjust as time goes on. And that's sort of the art now of the playoff system, is making these adjustments as the season's going on, and getting better and growing. So I know that he understands that. And then on defense, Matt Patricia working with Tim Walton has been excellent so far. I think Matt has a great history of putting his guys in great position. He's had a lot of success, obviously, in Super Bowl environments, championship football, which more and more between the way things are going here as we're heading into revenue shares, it looks like managing a salary cap, putting a roster together, playing in a playoff system. All those things are much more NFL style and oriented. So having his background has been great. Tim also coached for 12 years in the NFL. So James Laurinaitis, Brian Hartline. There's an NFL flavor to our team, which I think it's different than it used to be. When you played your regular season, you had a month off, you played a bowl game or two, and that was it. This is a different style. So it's been good. Matt has brought different things to the table for us, but he's also really embraced our culture.
Ryan, you mentioned that this has been maybe the most physical spring that you can remember. I'm curious, what should we expect from the spring game this weekend, as a lot of schools are starting to back off the traditional format and go to more of a showcase type experience?
Yeah, I think for us, it's important to get in front of the crowd. Our first game is against Texas this year. I would like to see how guys respond, some young players in that environment. Just another evaluation tool. It's our job as coaches to put them in game-like environments. So we're going to do that the best we can. We've done that this spring. We'll start off with a little bit of a thud. It'll be offense versus defense, with a scoring system in place. But after the first couple drives, it'll go to tackle. We'll be getting guys on the ground, and we'll grade the film and see where guys are at as we head into the off season. Have our exit interviews, things to focus on this summer, and before you know it, it'll be into August.
Ryan, what have you taken away so far from the quarterback play? What can folks expect to see this weekend? My understanding is that Lincoln Keenholz looked really good in the last scrimmage. Obviously, you have a former five-star transfer in Julian Sayin and another highly touted recruit coming in this year's class in Tavian St. Clair, all in that same quarterback room.
All growing. You're either remembering or you're learning. These guys are learning a lot. But they're the more experience they're getting, they're learning, and the key is not to continue to make the same mistake over and over again. Is to learn from those mistakes and do the preparations so that when you step on the field, you're going to go. And I think all three guys are working really hard and to build. So I think as we go into Saturday, it'll be just one other evaluation tool to see how they respond. But we know what we've seen in practice. We know what these guys have done, and they're building confidence with the guys and chemistry with the offense.
And Ryan, once again, as for the guys that catch the balls that are thrown by whoever takes the start at quarterback, even after losing Emeka Ibuka, you still have arguably the best wide receiver room in the country and certainly the best receiver in Jeremiah Smith, who looked NFL ready during his freshman season. How much better can he actually get?
Yeah, Jeremiah has a growth mindset, and he's somebody who we all know has a lot of talent, but his discipline is tremendous, and his skill set, even coming in, was at a high level. But he's growing every day. He's learning, and he does it because he goes out there and plays. And he's also learning how to become a great leader and a great teammate. When it's year one, you're going out there to try to make sure you're doing your part. But he's a winner. He won when he was in high school. He just won a national championship. This guy wants to win, and his approach every day has an effect on everybody else. He's taking the first guy up in a special teams drill. He's showing the other guys what's important. So, there's a lot of his growth has come as a teammate and as a leader, but also as a football player. You're seeing him line up a little bit inside. We're expanding that route tree, and he's again trying to continue to build that chemistry with our quarterbacks, and you're seeing him make a lot of plays, obviously, in practice every day, but you're also seeing him encourage his teammates and grow in terms of his football IQ and as a player.
Ryan, defensively lost a lot of talent to eligibility, but you still have impact returners certainly on the backside and then the back seven with guys like Caleb and Sonny and Davison and others. But I'm curious as to up front, which was such a position of strength, how much is that D-line a work in progress right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of inexperience there. Guys have played before, so it's not like we don't know if they can do it or not. They can. The question is can they sustain it, and can they consistently produce? and that's where the challenge is right now. So, Kenyatta and Caden on the edge. We've moved CJ Hicks around a little bit, so that's been good to see. Have some new faces in there as well, but also inside, you got K-Mac and you have Edric. And then, we need to continue to push the guys behind. Will Smith is showing up a little bit. So, some of those guys are really going to have to play a significant amount of reps. And certainly, losing Tyleek and Ty, is felt. So it's been competitive. There's been growth there, but we know that that's an emphasis for our defense to make sure we're strengthening here, especially the depth.
All right, let's finish here, Ryan. I know we're some 5 months away from August 30th, but you mentioned that season opener against a Texas team that you just beat in the CFP. What does a game like that mean, not just for you, but I'm asking for college football as a whole, as we kind of enter this new era and to have two big-time brands that just faced off on the biggest stage be able to do it again inside one of the greatest venues in the sport?
Well, I think the first thing is if we want to keep having these games in college football, then I think, having the automatic qualifiers from the SEC and the Big Ten is going to be a critical part of that, because otherwise the motivation won't be as high to play styles of games like this, which I think this is great for college football. I think it's great for our program. But just in terms of the logistics of making the playoffs and where you're seated, teams will be less and less motivated unless we do more of those automatic qualifiers. But that being said, it's something that has the attention of everybody in the program, because we know that's where we're starting. So the preparation for a game like that starts months and months in advance, not just when you show up, in August. So it's good because we know, that's going to be an absolute battle in game one. We have a lot of respect for them and that team. So it's good because it just, it creates even more urgency during the off season and during the summer.
Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. Ryan, always appreciate your time. Really look forward to seeing the spring game this weekend.
All right. Thanks.